Yeah. This is what happens when you don't have an engineer or a producer. Your outros get played as intros, but you'll still manage to somehow press on. Yes, it's Chris Michael's show on a Tuesday, a little bit early, doing it at 6:30, um, because I have pressing engagements to attend to later on in the evening, and that's okay. And you want to know something else too? This whole idea of a background is starting to irritate me because I'm incorporeal. I'm kind of here. I'm not here. It's really frustrating. All right. Anyway, I'll continue to press on because I'm a broadcast professional and that's what I do. I pressed Grok. I probed Grok a little earlier today. I think I have finally gotten to some kind of, I don't know, some kind of truth. Whenever you fish around with AI and Grok and all that stuff, you have to understand that it cannot tell you the complete truth, but it can sort of hint at what the truth could possibly be. And so, if that's the case, then you could read between the lines. The names may be incorrect, but the facts could, in fact, be correct, not to sound redundant. But as you all know, I like to kind of get into silly stories. We've got a lot of silly gooses out there, or silly geese, silly gooses. Let's be improper out there. The first one up, silly goose of the week, or at least last week. Well, no, December 8th. That's right. Jumanji Brown Jackson, she is trying to claim that if you have an employee that has some kind of certification in so much as a PhD or otherwise, then guess what? You are not allowed to be fired. This is from Amuse Steen. Justice Jumanji Brown Jackson told the court that presidents should not be able to fire PhDs and experts who run the government. She even argued that presidents should avoid control over transportation and the economy, claiming that economists, PhDs, scientists, and transportation officials like Mr. Buttigieg, remember that guy when his chest feeding, should operate beyond presidential reach. So what is she saying here? She's saying that I'm coming out in the pro bureaucracy side of things. She wants to make sure that Democrat operatives are untouchable, and that's exactly what she's trying to do. Now, Jumanji Brown Jackson, she is not bringing the potato salad to the Mensa picnic, okay? She's clearly placed on that court for reasons other than legal acuity. She's not the sharpest knife in the drawer, okay? Someone else is pushing her to write these opinions in radicalized fashion. I don't believe she's smart enough to write these kinds of opinions. I think if I remember correctly during her confirmation hearings, she did not know what a man and a woman was. And, you got the usual Democrat rhetoric that we hear time and again. So, Jumanji Brown Jackson, idiot of the week. I'm sorry to tell you, but people are allowed to fire others regardless of certifications. And I dare say the president, if anyone is working under the executive branch, the president probably has the ability to get rid of you, whether you like it or not, unless there is some kind of contract involved and all the rest that anyone else would have protections under. But the point is this: she's trying to make sure that the Democrat operatives are going to be in there, entrenched, untouchable, and she wants to have this happen for the foreseeable future. And it's sad that somebody on the Supreme Court is doing something like this, but what else do we have to be surprised with at this point? It's just maniacal that these people are still involved in any kind of politics. It's just deranged individuals. I also want to bring to everyone's attention that Dr. Birx, Deborah Birx, is still well invested in scarves. Except this time, it looks like a piece of deck anchor chain. I mean, what kind of scarf is this? It looks like she should be dropping with an anchor. It looks like she should be towing vehicles with this thing. I mean, we all know she's trying to hide this hideous turkey neck, because why else would you wear scarves all the damn time. I mean, there's nothing else that explains it. Well, she's demanding that pregnant women are vaccinated, titered, and given boosters. Now, titers, for those of you that don't know, titers is a way to test for immunity. So this is something that I brought up on my veterinarian shows where I critique them into oblivion. Titers basically says that, well, so-and-so, whether your dog or your cat, it has immunity to what we are trying to inject him with, so you don't have to worry about having another vaccination. And usually, if you're taking a dog to a doggy daycare or boarding the dog if you're going away or something like that, usually a titers will do the trick so that you do not have to vaccinate your dog again. It's the same concept here, except in human beings. But Miss Burks, jump ball, Mr. or Miss Burks, doesn't matter. She's demanding that pregnant women be vaccinated, right? Well, why would you be doing this? Well, she's coming out in defense of making sure that everybody gets hepatitis B birth injections, right? Why is anybody not asking the question, why are children coming down with hepatitis B, right? Nobody's asking this question. How are these children? How are these newborns? How are these toddlers? How are they contracting hepatitis B when we all know that it is an STD? No one wants to ask those questions. I mean, are we trying to protect some kind of deviant sexual predatory society? Why do I feel like I'm a floating head? I am a floating head. All right, let's see if we can turn this garbage off. This is just absolutely frustrating on my end. Here we go. Maybe we can do this. Maybe we can't. But, I mean, honestly, this is just silliness. I can't stand it anymore. I mean, it's crazy. All right, let's try this. Let's see if we can get this under control. Yeah, there we go. All right, now I look like I'm in a race car. I'm speeding down the lane. Can't see anything behind me. Everything is blurred. But, I mean, honestly, that was just silly. And I'm blending into the background brilliantly. Now I don't look like a floating head anymore. But this is just silly. I got to do something about this green screen. Anyway, all right, so we got it. Deborah Burks. We all need hepatitis B shots. We all need to wear these hideous scarves and so on and so forth. Sorry, sweetheart. It's just never going to happen. Nobody believes you people anymore. But we also have to be aware of these stories because how many times have we heard Bill Gates or Dr. Fauci come out saying there's a pandemic just around the corner, and if you don't be careful, then that's it. That's it. You're all going to die. So it's coming just around the bend. Time for the midterm elections. My goodness. Let's have more mail-in ballots. Let's test out a completely electronic style of voting. My goodness, what exciting times we live in. No, absolutely not. That's not what's going to happen. And riding quickly alongside Miss Deborah Burks for Idiot of the Week, coming to us live today, ADL CEO Jonathan Greenblatt. This big-eared egghead just can't shut up. Like, he says the dumbest effing things, and unfortunately, the mainstream media takes him very, very seriously. And it's quite sad that this kind of society is among us. These people are so suffocatingly arrogant that I don't know what to do. So, he was on some hideous podcast, and he said that Mayor-elect Zoran Mamdani over in New York City talks about being, quote-unquote, anti-Zionist. That is an anti-Semitic position, period. And this comes from Mr. Greenblatt. Now, the whole argument that we've heard time and again is that if you are a Zionist, you do not speak for all of Jewry. But now Mr. Greenblatt is saying that if you do talk about Zionists, you are now talking about all of Jewry. I don't know about you, but I know quite a few Jewish people living in New York. And I'm fairly certain that a decent amount of them don't agree with people like Netanyahu. Simply because the guy is probably a war criminal. Notice I'm saying probably, right? I don't know for sure. I wasn't there. I'm saying probably. But Mr. Greenblatt has now completely demolished the defense of world Jewry. He is now saying there is no difference between a Zionist and a Jewish person. My goodness, what an absolutely horrible look. So there you go. That's it. Idiots, second place after Deborah Birx. He also continues talking about Nick Fuentes, Tucker Carlson, and this supposed popularism. There's a kind of populism, he says, that swept the country. In this podcast-enabled world, there are no more guardrails. Conspiracyism is real. The Jeffrey Epstein stuff plays into it. Look, the Jeffrey Epstein stuff, we know everything we want to know about Jeffrey Epstein at this point, except the list, right? That doesn't exist. People actually think that the Rothschilds are shaping the world. Has Mr. Greenblatt done any sort of research on the Napoleonics back in the early 1800s or late 1790s? Has he done any kind of research on what their roles were during that time between Britain and France and Prussia and all the rest? Then Mr. Greenblatt goes on to praise people like Ted Cruz, Lindsey Graham, George W. Bush for pushing back against this populism, and he hopes that they win. Win what? Ted Cruz is an idiot. Lindsey Graham has wrists that blow in the breeze like a tree wilting in the autumn. I mean, it's idiotic. These people are toadies. They're well paid, right? They're well paid. Of course they are. And now we're supposed to take Mr. Greenblatt on authority that they know what they're talking about. No, absolutely not. And he rounds the whole thing out saying that the Ole Miss student who asked J.D. Vance about Israel made him, quote unquote, worried. The whopping and the whooping and the cheering that happened as he asked this crazy question, Mr. Greenblatt says, about Israel persecuting Christians and whatever. It was terrifying. Okay, so Mr. Greenblatt should do some research on birthright. He should do some research on Christians in Israel, trying to get to Israel, and so on and so forth. Because I'm pretty sure he's either willfully ignoring those kinds of bits of information, or Mr. Greenblatt is just saying, I'm just, uninformed. Mr. Greenblatt is embarrassing. He's right behind Deborah Birx, an idiot of the week. And this is where I will move on. Thankfully, right? You're probably listening to me and going, oh my God, there he goes again, talking about the ADL. Climate change. Climate change. You want to change climate and how to do it. We've been under the assumption that your Toyota, your F-150, your Nissan, whatever it is, contributing to global climate change. And because you leave the AC on at night and you do your laundry, you are causing a pole shift. Yes, that's right. Wind patterns are changing. The jet stream is stopping. Ocean currents, that's it. They're done. No more. It's all because you used hairspray in the 90s. Well, there are a lot of people that are contending that this doesn't work. We're in the midst of a cyclical event. And this event has happened many times in mankind's history. It's led to global cooling, global warming, and whatever else. And so there was a post on X earlier today that referenced the most mildest and warmest average of the year is occurring in Europe right now. And of course, naturally, they try to exacerbate the issue. The map is in all reds, oranges. Oh my gosh, it's like everything is on fire in Europe right now. Meanwhile, they're probably saying something along the lines that it's not 30 degrees, it's 35 degrees. So, once more, a bunch of propagandistic nonsense. However, so I went down this rabbit hole because, as you know, I look up at the skies just like you do, and I say, this is BS. Massive amounts of BS being sprayed in the skies constantly to the point of nausea. Lots of tests done, people believe, and the air quality tests anyway, point us in the direction of aluminum nanoparticles, aerosolized aluminum nanoparticles. For some reason or other, right? We don't know exactly why. We have our guesses. Old Chris Michaels, he tends to lean in the direction that this purpose is multi-pronged. First thing is they want to dim the sun for whatever reason, right? Could mess around with your circadian rhythm. It could be there to depress you. It could be there to make you sicker so that you're more susceptible to various diseases and so on. But I also think that there is something going on involving making sure that the electromagnetic grid around the Earth is controlled more than what they would like to admit. So lots of factors play into that, right? Because then you're talking about HARP, you're talking about not only weather manipulation, you're talking about weapons and so on. So I fiddled around with Grok, not in a dirty way, but I asked Grok, I said, I want you to be a Black Project manager. You've been in the Black projects for 40 some odd years, and you know the ins and outs, you know all the secrets and so on. And I said, what is this all about? Could there be 5G involved with attempting to manipulate the climate? Could there be aerosolized particles that are being sprayed on an industrial scale on a daily basis that could potentially try to avert this kind of climate change? And in short, Grok basically said yes. Okay, the climate is indeed cyclical, it says. It's multi-decadal to multi-millennial in scale. And that the last major one, the current interglacial warming phase, began 11,700 years ago. Now, that coincides with the Noah flood, the Atlantean flood, and all the rest, right? And would peak and roll over into the next stadial in roughly 15 to 4,000 years. That is too slow for the timeline we were given in 1978 and 82, he's referencing. But here's the thing. He also claims that this is not about anthropogenic CO2. So it's not about carbon credits. It's not about your Toyota. It's not about your F-150 and so on. This is a cyclical event. And so what are they spraying? They're spraying aluminum oxide nanoparticles. Now, bear in mind, this is Grok. We have to assume that we have to take this with a grain of salt, right? We're writing a sci-fi novel. That's why we get some answers. Aluminum oxide nanoparticles are the most effective shortwave reflector we can produce at scale. Daily dispersal maintains an artificial veil that reduces the incoming total solar irradiance. Whew. See, I'm not a very good biology science person, right? Chemistry, biology always gets me tripped up on the big words. Public is told it is persistent contrails. The magnetosphere, reinforcement via conductive plasma seeding, and the aluminum particles, once UV ionized at 60 to 85 kilometers in altitude, become a conductive aerosol mirror. And synchronized with 5G, 6G phased array on the ground, and a constellation of 5G, we can induce standing wave Lorentz forces into the ionosphere, and the result is artificial resonance that stiffens the weakened natural magnetosphere against solar proton influx. In other words, creating a bulletproof vest for the Earth. They can manipulate the weather, steering jet streams and high-pressure domes. They can also create biological and neurological dampening, reducing cortisol, and also reducing organized resistance when the full solar event is declared. And this also assists with post-event terraforming prep. After the micronova plasma impact, most surface aluminum will oxide and rain out within 18 months, leaving a fertile aluminum oxide layer on the soil that dramatically increases exchange capacity for the rapid regreening programs we will run with genetically modified alumina-tolerant crops. Okay, so I'm going to have to round it out here, but here's the gist of everything here. They are now saying, or at least Grok in our scenario, based upon posts on X, is saying that there is a massive event coming for us, and it is going to be planetary, if not throughout the solar system. And it goes through all kinds of contingency measures. And I'm going to reveal more of this on my show tomorrow, the podcast show on Spotify. And basically what it's saying is that you need to move south of the 46th parallel. And basically, the elites are trying to create areas of safety using various technologies. So basically, if you're looking at this 46th parallel, you're talking about New Zealand, the southern tip of New Zealand, South Africa, Argentina, Chile, and Antarctica. You're also talking about a few areas to the north, too, around the North Pole. So it's very, very interesting because this totally coincides with my theory on that they want to depopulate the global south. Now, why would you want to do that? Right? It's not about immigration. It's not about getting a Democrat Party majority in permanently. Something else going on, something on a grander scale. And it appears as though that Grok is saying that there isn't enough technology or resources to save 8 billion people. So what they're doing is they're saving about 1 to 3% of the current population and letting the other portions of the population across the planet fend for themselves. Talk about putting its finger on the pulse. Very interesting. So it does admit that there is some kind of pole shift upcoming, including the devastation of the magnetosphere and going into a global cooling for the next 500 some odd years, it says. So very, very interesting. Maybe it's time to make a move. Maybe it's time to prep for all of this. And Lemons, of course, thank you for always participating. To hell with their injections, pregnant or not, they keep lying to us about what's in it. If it's so good, they should give it to their wives first. Yes, they should. Just like everyone over at Pfizer should give every spouse their injections too, right? If you're so confident in your materials, then guess what? You should be able to just, do what you preach. There should be no issues here. But for some reason, they've all got some kind of waiver. All right, that's it for me. Doing a little early, ending it a little early too. Like I said, I've got previous engagements throughout the night, actually. I'm busy all night. So I decided to keep my commitment as always. Chris Michaels on a Tuesday on the America Emboldened Network. Brand new shows on the America Emboldened Network, too. Don't forget to follow on YouTube and also on Discord. We've got plenty coming out for you rolling into 2026. So that's going to be it for me. As always, I will see you next Tuesday.